All right. Hey, you guys. Welcome to Hey DFW with Aaron J. It has been a minute since I saw you guys, even though I've been streaming from home, but it's been a minute since I've been in the studio. So thank you for joining me today. We have a really, really good show for you guys today. But first, I want to give a shout out to my sponsor, which is my company, Specs Custom Writing Services. It's a boutique writing agency that specializes in resumes, CVs, biographies, cover letters, and thank you letters. Visit us online at www.specswriting.com, or you can follow us anywhere on social media at Specs Writing. That's SPECS Writing. All right, so before I introduce my next guest, I have a rundown of what has taken place prior to this show. So I'm pretty sure you guys have watched the news. Everybody knows everything, but I did a small summary so we can just talk about that and discuss that before I interview my guests. So I'm going to go over my rundown here, and here we go. In late 2019, a strand of coronavirus known as COVID-19 has caused a massive outbreak in the U.S. and around the world. As of June 2020, the CDC has documented over 2 million confirmed cases, and the death toll has exceeded over 100,000 in the U.S. alone. There has not been a confirmed vaccine at the moment. To flatten the curve and not spread the respiratory virus, Texas Governor Abbott released an executive order effective April 2nd, 2020, requiring all Texans to stay home unless they are participating in an essential service or activity. While sheltering in place, Americans witnessed the murder of an African-American resident of Minneapolis, Minnesota, George Floyd, on May 25, 2020, at the hands of a police officer. At the same time, news continued to spread about the deaths of Louisville, Kentucky resident Breonna Taylor, who was fatally shot by officers on March 13, 2020, and the murder of Brunswick, Georgia resident Ahmaud Aubrey, who was also murdered by, former law enforcement agent and his son on February 23, 2020. No arrests were immediately made at the time of those murders, and George Floyd pretty much was the last straw, causing an international protest for the Black Lives Matter movement. As of now, June 2020, the economy is slowly opening back up, but patrons are encouraged to wear masks and continue to practice social distancing guidelines. As far as the murders of Black American citizens, some arrests have been made, but other lynchings, shootings have continued to take place. And here we are, the protests and the pandemic are going on at the same time. And that's where we are in present day. So today's guests are super duper special to me. I met them a year ago, you guys, on their show. They're the host of the Jewel Drop, Nina Renice and Natural Keys. Make sure you guys follow them online at the Jewel Drop, Joule Drop, DROP on all platforms. And check out their show as well on Powerplay Radio. Welcome, you guys.
Thanks for having us.
Yes. My introduction made me sad all over again.
Yeah, I did feel a little heavy while you were reading it and just giving a rundown of everything that has occurred and where we are now. Yeah. It's heavy. It's a lot. A lot has happened, but hopefully we can all listen tonight to get an understanding of everyone's perspective and point of view, and not listen to rebuttal. A lot of people there are plenty of perspectives out there about what's going on right now in terms of the pandemic, in terms of the protests, in terms of priorities and your mental health and recovering from that, recovering from the trauma, really. And there's so many perspectives that there's a little self-righteousness going on online and social media and just circles of people that you talk to. So I'm really hoping that tonight will be different in that people are tuning in and listening to everyone's perspective to understand that we're all processing it a little differently, and not listen for necessarily rebuttal or to tell someone that they are wrong in how they're dealing with what's going on right now.
Right.
Because my experience is my experience, not the experience that everyone else has. So
Right.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
So we'll talk about your experiences, starting with you, Natural Keys. Show me, like, how are you feeling right now? And tell me just over the past couple of months, how did you just take all this in?
So today, I'm much better.
Okay.
When everything started, my kids were away. They weren't here. They were on spring break. And then the school system said, we're now doing online. So I went to get them so that I could make sure that they're finishing school at home. So I had school at home, single parenting, working, doing everything at the same time. It was a bit much.
Yeah.
Extremely overwhelming, trying to keep up with the news, trying to keep up with everything that's going on, what not to do, where not to go, make sure the kids are safe, make sure all the assignments are turned in, staying on top of all of your work, making sure there aren't any errors. Like, it was quite much. I do have a therapist. Shout out to Veronica Swink if you're in DFW.
Hey,
Veronica Swink. And I talk to her regularly. There was a point where I had to have some emergency sessions. I've done some work. So I'm getting some support to help me through some things that have been going on. But it has definitely been a mental journey. I haven't been able to really, I think I watched Ahmaud's assassination. I have not seen George Floyd's. I have not. And then I stumbled upon another execution of a young man who was being arrested. He had handcuffs. He was handcuffed, and he was executed. The other guy, there was another guy that you probably did not mention. He was a veteran. He was suffering from mental illness, and he was in the car without a shirt on. He was on Facebook Live. And the police were behind him, and he got out the car, and like he was running, and then all of a sudden you can just see people saying, "Did you see those bullets flying?" And one of the officers said, "Oh, this is gonna have to be a closed casket." So it was.
He was a young guy.
Yes. So just a lot. You know, you have to pick and choose what you want to view and what you want to look at. And I haven't been very vocal on social media about what's been going on. I'm more of a silent protester, so to speak. You know, you may see like Black Lives Matter somewhere, but I just hadn't been very vocal because it is very draining to my energy, and we want to protect that. So
yeah, that's true.
It has been a bit much, but I'm fine today.
What about you, Nina?
In terms of my experience, so I was with my family when COVID really ramped up, and so we were all able to go into lockdown, so to speak, together for the shelter at home orders, and I was able to have my family nearby. My daughter was home with me. She's in high school, so I don't have the same experience as some of the other parents may have had with having younger children to have to facilitate coursework with and double check homework. I didn't have that part of it, but I was going back into the job market when COVID happened, and I was hired on board to a telecommunications company just as soon as everything started to really ramp up. So in terms of mental health, I've just been feet on the ground supporting operations and IT, and that's a space that really goes unnoticed because there was so much attention on frontline workers, but our role was essential as well because frontline workers needed telecommunications and information technology to stay afloat and actually perform their job functions. So for the past 10 weeks, I've been working like 80, 90 hours a week nonstop, just to keep things afloat on, you know, for my customers, me and my team members. So shout out to all of you. You know who you are. I will not name the company because my thoughts tonight are very much based on my own experience being a minority woman in that space, and what has taken place and how it has impacted me is different from the experience many of my counterparts may have had. So I'll refrain from that. But mental health, I definitely checked in with my therapist and with my medical health care team, because it's no secret that I've had my challenges in that realm before, and it was good to see how on board everyone was when I said, hey, we're not doing good right now, because your body just cannot function at 100 miles per hour without you resting. So that's the area that I more so struggled in. And because of that, I refrained from looking at the videos online. I did not watch any of them. It was just more of a priority to protect my mental health, my peace of mind, my spirit man, and stay encouraged and protest in a different way. I put my energy somewhere else. And really, I'm just trying to stay healthy for myself, for my family, for my daughter, and participate and support in other ways. But I think what we're seeing right now, if you don't mind me taking the Band-Aid off of tonight's topic, is Black women or women of minority colors, specifically Black women, because that's who we are. We are, I would say, in the minority with every revolution or I would say change movement that takes place. We are a powerful force behind those movements, but we're often forgotten in terms of how it affects us and how it impacts us. And I think it's important that we keep that in mind. Not only are we forgotten in race runs and gender runs, but we're also forgotten very much in faith runs. So I think we're at a pivotal point to really start thinking about how we prioritize ourselves with the amount of change that is starting to take place.
Yeah. What is it that, because a lot of times, like the Black community, we don't, I'm starting to see a shift, but we don't always say, you know what, I need a therapist, I need help. Why do you think that is?
Well, traditionally, I would think that it's more so it was don't let these people in your business. That's something some white folks do. White folks don't go to therapy, so that
there was a stigma,
a huge stigma around it. The stigma is lifting. There is a shift. We have to be very thankful for Charlemagne and Wale and Common and Lupe Fiasco and Taraji P. Henson, all of these Black celebrities that are coming out saying, hey, I suffer from anxiety. Hey, I suffer from depression. Hey, I had to go to therapy. Because it's when the cool people go to therapy, it's like, oh, so you go to therapy? I think that's what it is. I am extremely passionate about eradicating the stigma behind mental health, illness, and making sure people go to therapy. Every time I talk, I plug EAP benefits. Use them.
I use mine.
use them.
Call the number.
Yeah, you pay for it, y'all.
You pay for it. And what I found out in just talking to people, even my mom, like the people around me about EAP, is a lot of people think that your employer would be getting information because you're using the EAP benefits. So a lot of people are scared of that. Like, what if they find out I have a mental illness? How is that going to impact me at work? But it is there so that you can be the best you that you can be while you're at work. So, yeah, that is kind of what it is.
Yeah.
We just were not trained or told to go to work. Just think about back in the day how many Black girls or little Black boys, for that matter, were molested or had trauma in their lives and never seek the help, and they grow up damaged adults.
That's true.
Because somebody tell them, you better not say nothing. That ain't for nobody to know. So, yeah. But I think we're coming out of that.
Do you think that, I'll first say, like, my experience, I did watch everything. Watched all of it, and I was just a roller coaster. I cried, I got mad, and of course, I vented on my social media page, but nothing damage or anything like that. It was facts, but it's just, I just when my birthday passed, I was like, I don't feel like getting up. I don't want to celebrate. Like, the world is in distress. Like, people are getting murdered in cold blood, and, by police officers who are public servants. Like, our tax dollars pay, their salary. And it was just disturbing to see that there's so much, it has to be so much to go into like getting someone fired and stuff like that. And you know, you like kind of late too many times, it's like, you know what, Miss Sylph, you know. But you know, when somebody's dead, it's, you know, and they're black, it's just like, well, all these kind of theories of why it was justified. Do you feel like black people suffer from some type of mental health, maybe I might PTSD from racism?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay, how so?
So I think you see it in the level of paranoia that we walk around with, even in public places, being afraid to be followed, being afraid of being racially profiled, and not necessarily afraid in a bad way, but there's a level of concern that we have because we know that people of other colors or officers do not value our lives because of the color of our skin. That can be traumatizing. Experiences can leave an imprint that you take a lifetime to recover from. It could be a word, because people say words don't hurt. That's a lie from the pits of hell.
Triggers.
They are triggers, and they can scar you sometimes. So I do think that there is some PTSD. I think that even the videos circulating, I know we want truth to be out there, but I think the videos can cause PTSD, especially in children. I think you have to be cognizant of what they are taking in and what you allow into their headspace. How can my 7-year-old nephew grasp that, you know, a young man was shot or kneed and couldn't breathe, and not grow up thinking that in some way that could very well be him? And you have to bring balance to that. Be honest with your children. Absolutely. Be angry. Be pissed about it. Now, I'm not saying don't do any of those things, but when it comes to the children especially, be aware and cognizant and protective of what you allow to infiltrate their thoughts and their minds.
And I think subconsciously we pass that PTSD down to the kids.
Yeah.
So
It's a perpetuating cycle. Yep.
right. So it's kind of like, don't do that. Don't walk around the store with that. Don't take that chip bag in the store because they're gonna think you stole it. And when, you know, so it's just stuff that we grew up not doing, and then you see other people doing it, like, well, why is she walking around with her chips in the store? Why is she, you know?
Right.
We have subconsciously passed that down to the kids too, and you don't mean to, and you want them to be safe, but at the same time, you want to make sure that their experience is not a negative experience, and you try to avoid that at any cost.
Right.
And just to piggyback off of what you said earlier, because you mentioned the stigma being broken because we have more celebrities, I want to say shout out to all the grassroots organizations who are like boots on the ground,
correct,
dealing with mental health and seeking ways for our community to be more well informed about mental health, and all the African American therapists and psychiatrists that are in the industry now. It's still a small population of them being African American, but you see a lot more of them stepping up and socializing their skill and their practice. So shout out to all of you who are actually boots on the ground and not a celebrity, because I think that they're the hidden gems in actually breaking that cycle.
Yep. Yeah. What would be your advice? Because it's a culture. It's a bunch of us, and I do agree that like the racism and stuff is passed down, and I do believe there is a little paranoia, like, you know, with all of us because of it. How do we handle that when we see things on TV that kind of feed into that, you know, stigma? Because it's scary, but, you know, a lot of the times it's like, well, you know, this is gonna happen because you're black.
You want to take that?
Oh, I really don't have an answer, you know, because it's
so broad.
It is very broad, and I also have to be 100% transparent and honest. I despise uncomfortable conversations with the children.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, you know, how do you combat that? I have girls too, so I've had more conversations about your skin is beautiful, black is beautiful, because long flowy hair, it's I've had more of those conversations with my girls, but and that is a form of racism too, right? Because I want my hair long and straight, and I want it blonde.
Is it a form of racism, or is it just preference? Because I don't think wanting my hair to be long and straight and flowy in some fashion is necessarily racism or self-hate. It's just a preference.
Well, not necessarily. Well, maybe not racism isn't the word, but my daughter had identified more with the white girl, and she said she wanted to be white because she wanted her hair long and straight and flowy, right? But your hair is beautiful. There's nothing wrong with your hair. We can do other things with your hair, but specifically blonde, straight, and flowy,
right?
Then I just think when they're exposed to stuff like that, it kind of makes them feel. And I don't even know how you come to the determination that is a better way to go than
right. Well,
what you currently have.
Yeah.
So no, I haven't had those conversations. I do not really know how to. That's definitely something that I would need to think about.
In terms of how you had the conversation and being protective about what they take in. So in my house, I limit certain things being on TV to begin with. I'm very much a helicopter parent, so to speak. I'm hands-on as well. Even though I have a teenager, I'm very much hands-on in what I allow her to see or take in. I don't watch certain things on TV. Just understanding and being aware of what could be displayed on certain channels. I don't allow it in my home to begin with. I also explain and help her understand why we're not watching this, and that's something I did from a very young age with her. You can be honest and be transparent with them and let them know what the real is, and still maintain a level of not making them too hyper vigilant to where it is unhealthy. So each child is different. They're going to interpret the message a different way.
Yeah.
But you also have to open up that communication with them. So I kind of tore down the walls where I feel like maybe generations before us didn't, in allowing my daughter to have an identity and be vocal and be honest and upfront, while maintaining a level of respect with me because I'm your mother, but definitely be honest with me about what it is that you feel or how you interpret a message, and let me guide you in what that is. Not saying it's right or wrong, but let me give guidance to how you are interpreting that message. And kids, because I remember having an imagination when I was a child. Is that really the message, or is that something like you are kind of trying to help yourself understand, so you had to exaggerate what actually occurred in the conversation or what you saw? And it's just a check and balance in the message and what's really happening versus how they are interpreting it.
Yeah.
How did you guys explain the protests to your kids?
My daughter is all in right now because she is in high school. So she started protesting in like the gaming space. I don't know how she managed to do it.
I don't.
But listen, she is. Let me talk about little Miss Nina Renice. She is a leader in her own right.
She very much is. Yes.
She surprises us all in the squad daily. So
yes,
it's not surprising to me that she was able to figure that out.
Yes, so she has figured out a way to protest in the space that she is in and where she does have influence. I hear her talking about it with her peers online or in Zoom, Snapchat, whatever they use now for communication mechanisms. Yeah. And she is very vocal. And a lot of her friends don't look like her. They're not Black women. They're not Black girls. But I've heard them be empathetic to what her experience is, and her being very much comfortable in owning all of that in her space. So I'm actually pretty proud, like hearing her in some of her conversations where, she's super proud right now.
Yeah.
She's wearing her hair in twists and rocking fros and
Okay.
puffs, and she's just
Yeah.
embracing all of who she is. And I'd like to think that her dad and I had a hand in, and her family, right? The entire village had a hand in helping her own who she is and be whole wherever she is, and not having to apologize for
Right.
it. I also think that's something that we do often as Black women, because we're too loud, or we're too opinionated, or how we express ourselves. We're expressive, and people are always trying to tone police us, and
Yeah.
don't deliver
The
the
angry
message
Black
like
woman.
that. I'm okay with the message, but it's how you delivered
Right.
it. So I like to think that I have taught her in somehow, even though I didn't know at the time, but in my teaching her, I was able to encourage her that it's okay to be your whole self and do it unapologetically. And so what if no one else understands? So what about
Right.
what they think about you and how you delivered the message? That's their business, not your business. So
How do you explain yours? Because your
Yeah,
children
her
are a
two
bit
are younger.
smaller.
Yeah, so I have a preteen. She
Okay.
thinks she know everything. Child. Her and all of her friends. We really hadn't had the conversation, but I've heard them kind of talking about it. And,
Okay.
one of her friends was like, "I just don't want to see any more of it. It's just, I just can't. I don't want to see it anymore. Don't send me no more messages about it. I don't want to talk about it." So they're kind of tuning it out.
Okay.
Like, they're aware that it's going on. They're kind of tuning it out. My youngest, of course, is not here. She's with my grandmother and my mom. So we haven't had that conversation, but we've talked about the coronavirus
Okay.
a lot. So she's like, "We can't go because of the coronavirus."
Okay.
So
Okay.
we've had the coronavirus discussion, but we
Conversations.
haven't had the actual protest discussions.
Okay. So as individuals, and you don't have to, it could be coy with it, just, or if you don't want to answer, you don't have to. Do you guys have any examples of racism that you kind of like? How did you feel at that moment, or what happened?
I do have an example of racism.
Well, I always felt like the chocolate chip in the cookie. I mean, actually, in my last position, I was the only woman of color in my team, and I was the only woman on my team.
That's a lot.
So I was
Yeah.
the only woman and the only Black woman in a team, a small team of, it was 3 direct reports, 1 manager, and 1 senior, and I was the only woman, and I was Black. So, yeah. And I always tend, even in corporate America, growing up, I always was like, no, it's not like that. But as you start to see things happen, in the back of your mind, when things happen, you always wonder, I wonder if it's because I'm Black.
Right.
Because if Ashley would have did it, it wouldn't have been said like this or something
Yeah.
like that. Like, more so recently now than ever, that's more of the, and I hate to have that thought, right? You really don't want to walk into a situation thinking it's because I'm Black.
Right.
But that's the first thing you think. And I try not to act like that, but
But if you're honest, it's difficult not to think that, because they handle us differently.
Yeah.
They handle us in a certain kind of way that you don't see them handle Karen or Ashley like
Baby,
that.
Karen.
Right. You are handled and treated a different way. Black women or Black women are passed over more frequently for promotions. Is it because she's not qualified, or you just didn't like the delivery of a message, or you thought maybe you were going to be able to handle her a certain way and she spoke up against it?
Right.
All of those can be, I would say, contributions to what we experience in the workplace. Not just in the workplace. I've seen it happen in the church as well, amongst clergy, where women are bypassed, or again, we are tone policed or controlled, manipulated, and you just can't help but wonder if, and I'm going to go ahead and say it, if part of why we are treated the way we are treated is because of how some Black men in power have treated us for centuries. So I don't think it's all just because, we're Black. I think that Black men have failed us to some degree in terms of how they support us in those spaces.
I've been seeing a lot of articles about that. Do you think black men, do you think they support us?
I think some of them support us. I think others may not know how to support us. And that's a space, if I'm transparent, I am conflicted in and frustrated in as well, because I know a lot of brothers who are doing great things right now in the community. They're starting businesses and, entrepreneurs, and they're buying back the block, and they're giving back in multiple ways. But some of those men whom I've supported have not supported any of my endeavors. They haven't shown up to a speaking event. They haven't shared a message on Facebook. Support can be in so many different ways. So I'm thinking that maybe some of them just don't know how to support us. It doesn't mean you get a pass. It means I need you to discover how to support us and start doing it.
Is that a form of narcissism like the black men have? It's like, because they expect you to rock with them, but when it's time for them to rock
I think
with
they
you,
just need to get over themselves. I don't even think
time to go.
I don't even know if it's narcissism. I just think they need to get over themselves.
Okay.
And some of it is just ego. And let's face it, their egos are fragile, but they definitely need to get over it and show up, be present, and do right by us.
Yeah. I've been seeing a lot of articles in that because I had in here like black women, they're on the front lines, we're marching, we're being a voice. And also, there's it's a big wave of like femininity and things of that sort. And they always kind of, when you do see someone fighting against racism, it's always a little chocolate, dark-skinned black girl or something like that that's like in the forefront fighting for America. And it's like, well, why is it, why has it got to be us? And I'm still trying to wrap my head around the narrative, but I understand that they just see us like, the strong black woman. We don't really need as much support because we're strong. But it's really like you kind of have to be if you're by yourself and you in this world by yourself. You have to learn how to manage and maintain by yourself if you don't have anybody supporting you. And I just don't understand why guys just don't get it. A group of them just don't get it.
You all right? They'd be like, you all right? You good?
Yeah.
I think that for years, for centuries, generations, there was a point in time where they could not protect us or support us. I like to think that many of them may have lost their lives standing up for us. So part of it may be fear. Part of it may be lack of understanding. And then let's face it, you have that population who just don't care to know or understand or do anything different, because different requires you to stretch and it requires you to change.
And
it requires you to be accountable and to be vulnerable and to execute and to be raw and transparent and sometimes bear all. And for so long, black men were not given that space to do just that and be accepted in it. So some of it I even contribute to like toxic patriarchy in our community. We don't really talk about it, but black men have not always had healthy relationships with the black men in their lives. No. Just like black women haven't always had healthy relationships with the mothers, the grandmothers, the aunties, the cousins in their lives. So part of it is just not knowing and not understanding. But because now you have the freedom to support us and stand up for us, I need you to do, again, different and better and start being present. And if you're going to have a conversation with me about that, I need you to know, brother, you're going to get that fire every single time from me, because I need you to do better and step up and not use the excuse of like poor behavior, poor judgment, and not knowing as a crutch.
Ask questions.
Yeah. What if you had we'll say about 3 things to tell someone, to tell a guy how, they should step up, or ways they could if they're listening. You guys should be listening. What would it be? Just so like, this is how I portray that black women need support in the community. This is how you can do better.
Nina?
Okay. First of all, don't talk about it, be about it.
All right.
If you are really asking me how to be better, be open to that and listen to understand, and don't listen to rebuttal, and be accountable in whatever the next steps are. It might be show up to an event. It might be present with me in this conversation. It might be, hey, can you share this? Can you like this? Do you know any other women or brothers who would benefit from this service that I provide? But when it's time for us to be there for each other, be there. And don't, I'm tired of the sugarcoating and us always trying to talk about it. No one's that dumb in the world. There's only so much talking we can do before I'm looking at you like, take action.
Yeah.
So I'm really at that point where I just need them to show up and do it and stop talking about it. If you talk a good game on Facebook, but when it's time for us to be like boots on the ground, and you bow out in cowardness or whatever it may be, or it's uncomfortable, I'm looking at you sideways now.
Yeah, it's a turn off for me. I'm like, I can't take him seriously.
Yep. And I don't take you seriously.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Do you think, now, how would they, it's like, and I've seen it online. I watched a lot of YouTube videos and read forums about it. A lot of Black women agree that we're not protected, and they really don't come to our defense as much and things of that sort online. Thank goodness, things are coming full circle for Breonna Taylor and things of that sort. But how do you think the message is getting across?
In terms of them
just stepping up and saying, what,
protected.
We need to do better by our women.
So I think this is a good question to ask even a panel of women if they are tuned in. Do you feel protected when you are in a crowd of Black men, or do you feel it necessary to guard yourself because you don't feel safe? I, as a Black woman, I don't always feel safe when I'm in the presence of Black men, depending on how those men conduct themselves. Are they getting the message? Many of them are not, if I'm being honest. At least
emotionally intelligent.
They're just not there. And I know it takes them a little longer to mature and for it to click. But it does need to start clicking at
a little bit more often.
some point, and a little sooner before you hit that 40 mark. Like if you could do it in like late 20s, early 30s, that would be great. And if you can get it before then, we'll take it. Right. But I need it to start happening a little sooner.
Yeah. Do you think it's because of the absentee father?
How long do we use that as an excuse, though?
Right.
And you use someone not being there to not evolve. Because if the dad was there but didn't know how to be a dad in that role, you could still have struggles and use that as an excuse. I think part of it is being set in their ways and, again, not getting over themselves. This is not to come for the Black man. I think that in some instances, Black women should get over themselves too. There's plenty of that to go around, but I don't think it's always an absentee father issue. Some of them just don't want to do better. And if you're dealing with a person like that, you have to take it for what it is.
So one of the things that, when I see things online, especially, I don't know if you guys saw, it was a Snapchat video. I think they're teenagers. They made something, how to make an N-word, an ingredients, how to make an N-word. And it was like no father and things of that sort. Do you feel like that has been a stigma against our community, like that the Black men have abandoned the household? And because they always say that, it leads to a life of crime, XYZ. Because of that, do you agree?
I agree that is a stigma. I also agree that if we take it back, to slavery days, our families were torn apart then. Like the fathers were taken out of the home then because they were sold. The dad was sold, the mom and the kids stayed at one plantation. Sometimes they may not have been able to see one another. And it happens. I am definitely in agreement with Nina when she says we can't use it as an excuse all the time. My dad was not around all the time. Like, I know who he is, but for whatever reasons, his personal reasons or whatever mental health issues or life that he has, it didn't change who I was. It didn't make me go to a life of crime. First of all, PV wasn't going. But secondly, you know, I wanted better for me.
Right.
And like, I'm the first person in the family to go to therapy. Everybody's not going to therapy. But at some point, you have to take ownership of how you want your life to go. And I think that I would probably recommend that would be a first place for the men to start.
Okay.
Work on you. Like,
Absolutely.
Get you some help. Go. You may not feel like you need to go to therapy, but if you go to therapy and you start talking about some of your experiences, it may enlighten you on some of your thought processes so you can understand why you think the way you act, why you behave the way you act, so that now you can unpack it and start to relearn some things and be more supportive in areas where there has been lack.
On social media, so, you know, of course, you know, we talked about people being vocal and the stigma against the Black community and things of that sort. So when you see comments and or pictures that are disturbing, that have like sometimes are just plain out racist or racist undertones, how do you handle that? Because I have a hard time compartmentalizing that. I don't comment or anything like that, but it does, you know, hurt my feelings, or just say, they're so ignorant, you know. It's annoying and it gets under my skin sometimes.
It kind of broke. Well, so I had an incident where one of my classmates, he's a total goofball, but he posted a racial joke, right? And one of the white guys in the group was like, all lives matter. It's not just Black lives. Are you saying my life doesn't matter? So he kind of like made it all about him. And a lot of us was coming together and was like, no, it's not about that. You don't have to walk into a room and just by the color of your skin be judged. And, well, you don't know what I've been through, but you're privileged. You don't understand. And I was like, oh my gosh. Like, I was shocked. A lot of my classmates were like, I'm not surprised. You know, people are showing their true colors now that all of this is out, not really being empathetic to what we've gone through. And I think I also felt for my brothers who played football with him, because, you know, football, that's a sport. They have a brotherhood. They played 4 years together, you know. So I looked at him as my brother. And now that your brother is hurting because of the color of my skin, you's like, nah, my life matters too.
Yeah. I think that's a very, you know, the all lives matter thing. I think it's just a condescending undertone. There's common sense, you know, says, of course, why would we start a hashtag saying all lives matter? That is crazy. You know, it will only, you know, that what kind of, even from a marketing perspective, we know this, you know, like this, what kind of, you know.
So I think All Lives Matter started in, we have this whole initiative now around inclusion and diversity and all of that stuff. So All Lives Matter is them not wanting to be forgotten or excluded. It's a way to keep them involved in the conversation, make sure they still have skin in the game. And by they, I mean white people. Now is not the time, however, let me be clear, for you to hit a hashtag All Lives Matter, because that's not flying with this new generation. I know I give the millennials like a lot of flack because I don't understand them completely, and I don't agree with their conduct with many things. But the millennials are not playing this time. Yeah. What generations were not doing before, they're protesting, and they come in armed. And they taking it a step further, and they not afraid to get back with you. Yeah. it's a different generation that we are dealing with now. So just know your All Lives Matter rhetoric does not fly with the millennials and everybody behind them.
And the millennials got time because they at home.
Right. Right. So they do have time.
Right.
I got time
And a
today.
bigger reach. They had all this technology. Yeah, me and my guy friend were talking. I was like, because, I the Civil Rights Act, I mean, it's like in the late 60s, and when everything, passed, and, my sister was like born in like 70, 71. So technically she was the first person in our family to have full rights. So I do get, insulted when people, kind of, you take away from that. That's not long ago. That's my sister.
Not long ago.
Mm-hmm. And then, I mean, I don't understand. I just don't understand that. And I think for our generation, we just kind of reap the benefits from what they did in the 60s pretty much. And it's like, okay, we're playing the game. And now it's like it's hitting again. And one of the things that, about the police, and of course, there are good cops out there, but I don't like to always say there are good cops out there. We're talking about these particular cops that have murdered people, and
I think you can still support blue.
Yeah.
And say Black Lives Matter.
You can do both. Yeah. I do both. I know police officers. I work with police officers.
I do have a problem with people putting everyone in a box and telling them to stay there. You can do both. You can also contribute to politics and be in the church. And there are different governments and arenas where people are being raised up to be the pioneer of a movement. And we all have to sit at the table to have a conversation for those things to start panning out and working. But again, All Lives Matter is your rebuttal in hearing what I'm saying and you not listening to understand. Mm-hmm. Because even in the Black Lives Matter movement, there is an issue. Why do we have to have a separate hashtag for Black women with the hashtag say her name or hashtag me too? Mm-hmm. If all Black Lives mattered and Black Lives mattered transcended across genders and not just race, we wouldn't have to have separate hashtags when something happens to us. And you hit on Breonna Taylor earlier. If you don't mind, I want to go back to that because there hasn't been enough movement behind what happened to her. Mm-hmm. It was absolutely wrong. And I want to know in our community how many people heard what happened and said, well, she shouldn't have been with somebody who wasn't that or not living that lifestyle, or how many people judged her and thought she had what was coming to her instead of this woman is in her bed,
sleep
at home, asleep, where she is supposed to be safe, and there was a no-knock warrant that was executed, and her partner had no idea what was going on, and her life was taken away because of it. There's just not been enough push behind what happened to her.
Right.
When I first saw it, I was like, damn, another one. Like, but it was so much about Ahmaud, it kind of fell. But then once I realized, I actually thought that it would be more because she worked as an EMT.
Yeah, she's an essential worker.
Like, she was an essential worker.
Yeah.
Then to find out that they did so much to cover it up.
Yeah, they did.
So much to cover it up because you knew you were wrong. Yeah, so.
I mean, but that's how it played out. I'm just wondering, in our community, who heard the story and judged her because of what happened, because that is what we do with Black women. We judge another woman and her story and somehow victimize them all over again for poor decision. And I'm not perfect. I've done wrong.
Right.
And grace got me through. And you mean to tell me my sister didn't deserve the same grace and she was at home in her bed? Like, no one's done that much or made such a poor decision that they couldn't be saved from it. And it was wrong. It was downright wrong. And there should have been more talk about, not just now. I know what happened to George Floyd overshadowed a lot of the other stories that took place. I think part of that is because for those who watched it, you actually watched him suffer for
8 minutes and 46 seconds.
42 or
46.
Okay, 46 seconds. And even in hearing it, to know that he cried out for his deceased mother made me think just he was already gone, if that's who he was crying out for. He just wanted comfort in that moment. So I know that he overshadowed a lot of what was going on, but that's because we saw him suffering.
Public execution.
Yeah. This young lady, though, her life was taken in her home, and we didn't have to see it. It's still wrong.
Yeah, that is it is scary, and it's just an uneasy feeling, and it just didn't have to be that way. And the fact that they didn't I think one arrest has been made at this point. I'm thinking I think but we'll just say alleged. But the fact that you have to go through all that, you can't just kill someone and say, you know what, dang, it's the wrong house. And I'm with you. I see all the judgments and things of that sort. And to me, for those people who do that, don't judge people that get, killed and victimize them and talk about their character, and then your grandma passed or your dog passed, you post it on social media. You cannot do that. I hate that. That is so annoying. You want all this public sympathy for people you don't know, and then you want to victimize someone else. It's like, what are you, it's so overwhelmingly frustrating, and
just be quiet
right,
until you get all the facts, until you get.
And if you don't want anyone doing that to you, then don't do it to them. And another point I wanted to make too, when I hear about a child, getting, molested or strangled or kidnapped, I don't say, what color? I don't ask what color they are to be like, oh my God, that is horrible. I ask what was the location, like where does this happen, to see if this was close to home, how old were they, and then I go like more into the background. Well, where was mom, and where are the parents, or who was keeping her or him at the time. I ask so many questions. And the race doesn't matter. It's someone's child. So, and that should apply across the board. Even the adults whose lives are getting brutally taken, it's someone's child. This is someone's family member. And it's just so disturbing for me. And I just hate to see it. And
this world with social
tacky.
media, as I think social media can do good when we use it the right way.
It's a double-edged sword.
But it is a double-edged sword, and is really showing the lack of compassion that exists now, and the lack of grace. I know part of our conversation is, the mental health of Black women. How do we protect that part of us and stay resilient? We have to learn how to extend grace to ourselves and grace to one another. And that's not something that we've always done very well. We're very critical of ourselves. We're critical of one another. We're critical of other Black women that we bump into. And we have to now choose preservation of ourselves, self-preservation. That's part of why I'm not publicly protesting, is I have to protect my mental headspace. I don't feel like I owe anyone an explanation for that. But also, I'm not going to get killed over a culture when there's a bigger kingdom at stake. Again, we still have a whole faith run behind us that a lot of people are not, at the forefront of yet. We have some leaders who are finally stepping up and talking about, the church and how a lot of this has now impacted the population there, or the faith-based communities, but not enough yet. And so there's still an element of that is missing in us taking care of ourselves and making our health a priority.
A quick question. So how can Black women support each other? Like, how can we support each other just, with all this? Because we all have, your self-preservation. You're like, what? I'm going to see it. And I'm like, I see it. And then I get mad. Like, girl, So how do we support each other in this space? Like, what would be your advice to the other Black women that are listening? How do you support your sister?
Well, I I let my sisters be who they are, right? So however you come to me, that's how I meet you.
Yeah.
If she wants to talk about it, we talk.
Yeah.
If she don't want to talk about it, okay, girl, what you eating today?
Right.
You know, so I think I can pride myself in allowing my friends to be who they are without judgment. If you like it, honey, I love it. I'm going to stand right here, and if it don't work out, I'll be right here, and we'll figure out how to get you to the next step.
Yeah. That's perfect.
Making sure that, and I think that's like the true value of being a friend, or the true value of being a sister, is no judgment.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to tell me.
I don't agree with that.
Well, I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I don't. Like, I really like for people to be open enough to say whatever they want to say. If I have an opinion about it, then yeah, I do. Unless you ask.
Yeah.
I don't make it a habit of lending my opinion unless it's asked.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of how I am.
The only part I'm not sold on is the no judgment part, because somebody got to be saying, you know, if you're entering that space of self-harm or something like that, to talk you back off the ledge. So I'm not going to say no judgment based on what the behavior is. Yes, I'm going to accept you. Yes, we can talk about it, but I can't let you. Me being a good sister or a good friend means I don't let you waddle there for too long. So at some point, I'm gonna need you to put your big girl panties on. And we're gonna have to figure out what the next step is, and if there's something I can do to help you get there, let's talk about that and let me step into that space. Sometimes, however, if you're dealing with someone who is also dealing with an issue, they may not be the best person for you to lean on. I also think that being a good sister or being a good friend means that I tell you I'm not going to be the person that you can rely on for that right now.
Yeah.
But let's see what another option would be to help you get over the hump, whatever that may be. I do think there has to be like some transparency in where you are as well, not making it about you, but be honest. I may not be able to be there for you.
That's fair.
Especially at a time like what we are dealing with now with so much going on. And don't be afraid to say, I'm not that person right now.
Right, because you're not going to be good at doing it. It's like, oh my gosh, she's so selfish. Or every time I talk about it, she gets off the phone, you know. And if you knew that she was going through something, or she had her own issues, you could say, well, you know what, she already had that talk with me. Let me just not talk about this particular subject with her. And I'm glad you talked about faith, because I have a question on there about that. Can Christianity and racism coexist? Because a lot of the times people are, you know, Christians, and then you reject people because of their skin color, which is how God made them, which is interesting, because you're denying something that God made, and you're saying that what he did was a complete mistake. That's how I view it.
Christianity and racism cannot exist. They cannot coincide in the same space. Let's really talk about that, because that's real for our community. The Black community is heavy in church and religion and whatever
Get your
term you want to, whatever other term you want to leverage to describe your faith. But no, can they coexist? Absolutely not. I also, as a Christian Black woman or a Christian woman, I can't pick a culture over the kingdom of God either. So there are times when, yes, things go on in the culture that I can't agree with, because I represent a kingdom that is even higher than what we face here. And it's not being holier than thou and, you know, so heavenly minded that you don't understand what's happening in the world, but I am in this world and I am not of this world. And that is part of why I refrain from making certain comments. I cannot represent both. I have to represent one or the other. One I am forced into, the other one is by choice. So every day I am choosing the kingdom of God first over, yes, a culture. And I know some people won't agree with that, but that's my stance on it, and I feel absolutely 100% comfortable. And if you want to hit me up on Facebook or Instagram, please feel free to continue the conversation there.
Yeah, I heard her.
And this is where I just clenched my pearls and I hope you heard, you know.
But you know, I mean, See, I like when people stand in their truth, and that's a good thing.
And that's what you have to love about them.
Yeah.
You know, don't, to a certain extent, I will pull your coattail if you're getting a little too reckless.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
is what it
Yeah.
is. That's what I love about her. She's the fire
Yeah.
of the jewel drop.
I love that answer. Can you okay, this is so I was talking about this with my coworkers, and they're white, and we had a really good open conversation about it. They're I'm the only black person in the office, but my work environment is really good. They're real open and understanding, and we may or may not, we're supposed to even discuss it since this was political. But I've told them, like, hey, if you got any questions, y'all can come and ask me anything, and I'll tell you, right. I'll tell you, what I think about it or whatnot. And one of the things I brought up was, with the part of being racism and things of that sort. I feel like it's brainwashing for one, and two, wouldn't that have some type of mental health issues too? Because you have to literally have, most of the time they're always mad about something, they're always complaining about something, they're always grumpy about something, and they just don't come across as just happy people, and I would feel like that would be a lot of stress to just kind of like be annoyed by black people, and everywhere I go I see black people, and they're on TV, they're playing basketball, they're going to school with my kids.
But it's okay for you to see them play basketball for your favorite team. I have a problem. Like, we have a problem. It's okay for them to play ball or for your team, help your team to win, but if we start to speak, then we're not supposed to be intelligent, we're not supposed to have a mind.
You're supposed to stay in your place is what they really want.
Like they told LeBron, shut up and dribble.
Mm-hmm. Well, but how is that? Okay, are we good on time still?
We're actually over.
Are we serious? Are you serious? Okay. Well, I'll do the Hey DFW top 5 after that. But how is yeah, that was actually my last question before that. But I always wonder about that. Like, do you guys think that's like a mental health thing to be? Because that's gotta be stressful. It's gotta be stressful. Even the people that you see get arrested, they don't just look happy. Like, they don't look like they're just full of like live people. Like, they look like they have hate in them, and to hate something, it weighs you down. I hate certain things, like snakes. And
absolutely
right, if I see one or see too many images on TV, I get anxiety, I get scared. Mm-hmm. Like, it has to have some type of impact. Am I sounding crazy? Because I was just telling them about that. Like, I just don't feel like it doesn't weigh on you and your health to have this mentality.
I think it's something wrong with them, but I also would like to say that maybe they had an encounter.
Okay, a bad experience.
A bad experience that tarnished their view of people all the time. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. I can't make that assumption.
Yeah, because I guess we don't really have conversations.
Really trying to figure it out to see exactly what is it that I've done to you that makes you despise me so much.
Right. It just seems like it's a horrible way to live. I would never risk missing my family or being with my family just to kill somebody, to be, in jail where it's like 80% black people, and I don't like black people. It's fascinating. It's just weird. I don't understand that, but
I do think there is a disconnect or a deeper issue mentally with them. Some sort of detachment may be from even reality. But again, looking at faith is a spirit. Hate is a spirit. Racism is a spirit. It's a spirit that they've allowed to dwell within them. And because of the influence of that spirit, and I'm not saying that that's just it. Mm-hmm. It could be a combination of things, but because of that influence, then they cave into whatever the craving may be or the influence of the spirit may be. And I even think murder is a spirit.
I do too.
Murder. Yeah. The spirit of suicide. I mean, there are plenty of them. I do think, however, that there is some sort of detachment from reality as well.
And the boldness behind you actually acting upon that.
Yeah, you risking
How
everything.
How dare you? Like, how dare you?
Yeah.
The white lady who her partner, they lost their jobs
Yeah.
because they were accosting the man for writing "I can't breathe" in his driveway and saying he didn't live there. How you know? How dare you?
Yeah.
Then the lady that was in the 7-Eleven that was talking to, she wasn't white.
She was Latina. She told her to go back to her country.
And she smacked the fire out of her.
Yeah.
As she should. And
Yeah.
her husband said, I apologize. She's going through some things and she won't get no help.
And when you see her, it's like, ugh, you know, like, you don't even take care of yourself, much less go around insulting people.
And what's the other girl name? What's her name?
Amy Cooper in the park.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm going to call them and say, oh my God, I don't know where I am.
Yeah. That was
But
scary.
that's also generational.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at how many black men lost their lives back in the day because a white woman said a
And
black
lied.
man accosted her.
Yeah.
Po Emmett.
I was just about to say, spoke to you, whispered to you, anything
Yeah.
that made them uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And then you have stories about, the rape of Reese.
Yes.
I watched a
I did
story on
watch
Hulu.
that.
On
I'm
Hulu.
not familiar
She
with
was
that.
leaving church because they would walk long, and she was leaving church one night, and a group of white men picked her up. They raped her repeatedly and said she was a prostitute.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and it happened all the time. Like, why?
Yeah.
She couldn't have any more children after that incident. Like, just messed her up.
That is terrible. I just pray that we get through it, but it's definitely the beginning. Yeah, I mean, it's always been there, but now it's a new wave of it, and it's pretty scary. Let's see, how long are we over, Kat? Because if we are too over, then
10 minutes.
okay. Well, I'll just do. It's just my top 5, but I had it for both of y'all. But we'll just want to do one and want to do one, and then we'll finish to wrap it up. So. What is just basically, did I just explain to y'all what Hey DFW's top 5 is first?
No.
Okay. So it's basically like 20 questions, but it's 5 questions.
Okay.
And they're usually light, but this is kind of relating to the subject and then a little light. And so we could just start with Nina and then go to you, Keish, to wrap things up. So, Nina, what is the biggest misconception you feel that people have about African Americans?
Danger.
Okay.
I think that's the biggest misconception. Because black itself is associated with evil doing, hate, danger, dirty, no good, no healthy influence in your life. I think that is the biggest misconception that most people have about black people, or even uneducated is probably another very close one.
Okay. Keish, what do you like most about being a black woman?
My melanin be popping.
Okay. And Nina, so what is your most prized feature or characteristic?
Oh, my most prized feature or characteristic, my smile.
Okay. Send a wave right there. All right. All right, Keish. This is a historic time right now. Are you doing any type of documentation, like journaling at home, or, you know?
I tried,
Okay.
but I did not.
Okay.
Because I was like, what am I? I was like, okay, I'm going to try to get into more journaling. But then I saw what Aaron Condren and a couple other people doing. I was like, no, I'm not doing that. So, no, I'm not. But I have an impeccable memory. Ask anyone who has known me all of my life. I'll be able to recant it
Okay.
to all the children and grandchildren when we get older.
Okay. And Nina, what are you most proud of in this moment right now?
In this moment right now, like this moment being here, or this moment in time where we are?
This moment in time, the pandemic, the protests, like what is the good that you could just cipher out of this? If
Your silver lining.
My silver lining, honestly, is the revival that's taking place in people's hearts and minds.
Yeah.
Because I do feel like things are starting to turn. I just think this time really allowed people to prioritize what was most important. And I think many of us discovered that we've been fighting for things that probably are not that important when you're faced with something like a pandemic, a protest, or just the things that are going on in the world. So I really do enjoy reading other people's testimonies about how they were able to get a win even now.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on my
welcome.
show.
You're welcome. Thanks for having us.
Yes, it's been a while in the making, you guys. Actually, they were supposed to come on then. I don't know. We canceled.
It was like well, we had started. It was like December, I think, but there was like a flood or something happened, and then our times weren't coordinating, but we made it happen.
Pandemic and protest, y'all. All right, so you guys make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel, Hey DFW, and also follow the Jewel Drop on social media platforms. Visit their website and tune into their show as well. Thank you guys for tuning in, and that's it. Bye.